Good morning, everyone. I'm Habiba Dimbil, a safety officer from the FMS team in Mohab. Today I'm going to introduce the facility management and safety standards. But before we go into details, first we need to be able to briefly define FMS in order to help us make sense of it and also create a mental image so that we can easily address the question of what is the meaning of FMS and always be able to remember it. Now we move to the fire management plan. The scope of the fire safety management plan is to provide an environment of care that is fire-free. To create such an environment, we need to focus on preventing fire from happening in the first place, and that is by ensuring improper storage, especially of hazardous materials, practicing electrical safety, following the no smoking policy, and many others. If God forbid fire does happen, we need to be prepared to respond properly to prevent the spread of fire, damage to life and properties. So if fire takes place, you need to implement the first response procedure, race and pass. R stands for rescue, A stands for alarm, C stands for contain, and E stands for extinguish if the fire is small and evacuate if the fire is out of control. Pass is the steps taken to extinguish fire. So P is for pulling the safety pin, A for aiming at the base of the fire, S for squeezing the handle, and S again for sweeping left and right. This is a brief description, but I'll explain each step in detail later on. You need to be familiar with these questions. So if you are in your office right now, can you tell me where is the nearest break glass located? Where the nearest fire extinguisher is mounted? How can you get safely to your designated assembly point? In case of fire, what action will you take? That question is similar to asking, what is the fire emergency procedure? And finally, what is your specific role during patient evacuation? So again, as I said, in case of fire, we will implement race and pass. So let's dissect each step. First, we have rescue, which means you need to remove the patient or any personnel from immediate danger. The rescuing techniques include simple carry, side-by-side carry. At the end of this presentation, you will find a video of Mr. Fayez demonstrating each technique. Here we have pick-a-back, cross-hand pulling, fireman's lift. This technique is useful if you're carrying someone that weighs more than you. Tied hand crawl. This technique is also useful if you're carrying someone that weighs more than you. We also have the blanket lift, two-handed lift, three-handed lift, which is used for patients that are unconscious, four-handed lift, chair lift, fore and aft, and the use of a wheelchair by two people. If the patient is bedridden or can't be safely transported to the assembly point, you need to shift the patient horizontally to the nearest fire compartment or fire zone. I'll give you more information about the fire compartment or fire zones as we go along. When it comes to carrying babies to the assembly point, you can use the baby cradle in arms, fire evacuation newborn jacket, and baby cot. So that was the end of the first step, rescue, and now we move to alert. To alert, you need to shout code red, code red, code red, loud and clear so that everyone can hear you. Call the emergency number 81333 to activate code red and break the glass. Of course, all of these steps can happen simultaneously if you have enough staff in the department. Someone can shout code red, another can break the glass and call the emergency number to activate code red. The third step is containing the fire to prevent it from spreading. To do so, you need to close the windows, doors, and if available, you can wet a blanket and cover the bottom of the door. Also, you need to shut off the medical gas valves. So the common questions regarding the medical gas valves are, who is responsible of shutting it off? when do you shut it off, and how do you shut it off. So the only person that is responsible of shutting it off is the fire warden, or they can assign someone else to shut it off. Sorry. When do you shut it off? After code green, the code for evacuation has been activated and patients on ventilators have been provided with enough ambo bags, portable cylinders, and enough staff to assist. Then only it's safe for the fire warden to shut off the medical gas valves. The fourth step is extinguishing the fire, only if the fire is small, otherwise you need to evacuate to the assembly point if possible, or shift the patient to the nearest fire zone or fire compartment. Fire zones or fire compartments are areas of your hospital that are protected by fire-rated doors. That means you can safely stay in that area for 60 to 90 minutes. So for example, if a fire broke out in the maternity department, you can shift the patients to the nearest fire zone, which is the OT department, and so forth. You need to be familiar with the nearest fire zones to your department. One more thing that you need to be familiar with is the evacuation map. Each department should have at least one evacuation map, and you should know its location and how to interpret it properly. The red dot will show you where you are and how to get to the assembly point. The green line is for the primary emergency exit, which is the fastest way to the assembly point, and the blue line is your secondary emergency exit. If the fire is blocking your primary route, then you can use the secondary emergency exit. Other information is also provided in the evacuation map, such as the location of fire extinguishers, break glass, fire hose reel, fire alarm control panel, and many more. During Code Green, you evacuate patients according to their conditions. So we start off with patients in immediate danger, and then we move to ambulatory patients, which means patients that can walk. And then we have semi-ambulatory patients, and finally non-ambulatory patients, which are bedridden. So when it comes to operating room fires, God forbid it ever happens in your hospital, but if it does, it's important to know that an ongoing surgery should be completed to a point of safety before moving the patient. Now we move to the three stages of evacuation. Stage 1, zone evacuation. So for example, if a fire breaks out in a patient room, you can shift the patient to another room within the same department. This is suitable when the fire is small and it can be easily extinguished. Stage 2, horizontal evacuation, refers to moving the patients to the nearest fire zone or fire compartment, as I said before, for example, from maternity to the OT and so on. Stage 3, external building evacuation, means moving the patients to the assembly point. Now that we have completed the first four steps of the fire response procedure, rescue, alarm, contain, extinguish, or evacuate, we can move to the next steps, which are how to use the fire extinguisher. Before you start using the fire extinguisher, make sure your back is to the door so that if the fire can't be controlled, you'll be able to easily step out and close the door to contain the fire. If the fire in fact can't be controlled, immediately leave the room and close the door behind you. To effectively extinguish fire, you need to stand 2 meters away from it. So now that you are ready to use the fire extinguisher, you can implement the acronym PASS. P stands for pull the safety pin. A stands for aim at the base of the fire. S stands for squeeze the handle to release the agent. S again for sweep side to side. Towards the end of this presentation, Mr. Faiz will show you a demonstration on how to use the fire extinguisher. Here we have the fire hose reel, which is usually used by civil defense only unless you have a qualified staff member. So you might have seen that you have two types of fire extinguishers in your hospital, carbon dioxide and dry powder. Carbon dioxide comes in a black label, and dry powder comes in a blue label. So the question is, what's the difference between the two, and when do you use carbon dioxide or dry powder? The answer is in the classification of fire. These are the four main classes of fire. Class A is for the common combustibles such as wood, paper, trash, cloth, and so on. Class B is for flammable liquids. Class C is for flammable gases, and electrical is for energized electrical equipment. As you can see, the electrical class doesn't have a specific letter like the rest. It's represented by the universal electrical hazard symbol, the zigzag sign. So, carbon dioxide fire extinguisher is suitable for Class B and electrical related fires. If you go to your nearest fire extinguisher, you'll be able to see these signs easily. And for the dry powder, it can be used on Class A, B, C, and electrical as well. So it's more versatile than carbon dioxide. So again, carbon dioxide is used for Class B and electrical. Dry powder is used for Class A, B, C, and electrical. The two types of fire extinguishers available in your hospital as of now are carbon dioxide and dry powder. The common size of CO2 is 2 kg, and for the dry powder we have 4 or 4.5 kg. The good thing about carbon dioxide fire extinguishers is being a non-conductor clean agent, so it's suitable for electrical related fires. For example, if your computer catches fire, your best option is CO2. Its only issue is being noisy, which you will notice at the end when you watch the demonstration video. CO2 extinguishers are not suitable for Class F related fires. Class F represents kitchen fires, and wet chemical is the appropriate extinguisher to be used in such cases. So the advantage of dry powder extinguisher is being versatile. It can extinguish Class A, B, C, and electrical fires. However, it can cause damage, and it's very difficult to clean up, because the dry powder agent extinguishes fire by leaving behind a thick layer that looks like a blanket. Also, dry powder extinguisher comes with a gauge to indicate pressure. It should always be in the green zone for the extinguisher to work properly. If it's in the red zone, that means the pressure is either too high or too low, and the gauge needs to be recharged. If God forbid your clothes ever catch fire, immediately stop, drop, and roll over on the floor, and the fire will extinguish itself, because you are reducing the flow of oxygen. I'm sure you have seen in videos when people catch fire, they start running, and that makes it worse because you are adding more oxygen. Oxygen is one of the elements of fire, so if you add more oxygen, the fire spreads even more. I'll talk about the three elements of fire later on, but for now, again, if God forbid your clothes catch fire, immediately stop, drop, and if you have access to a blanket, wrap yourself with it and roll over on the floor. If you ever become trapped by smoke, lie on the floor, breathe through your nose, and crawl to a safe area. Because by nature, smoke is warm, which makes it lighter than air, so it will immediately rise up, leaving the air closest to the ground safer for you to breathe.